opening up soon, but that's a different topic for a different show.
Well, what they do have going on over there, I had seen the complex, but within a matter of probably a few months, going out there when they had their football tournament, I was just amazed.
We're talking about Spring Creek.
Yes.
Yeah, let's make that perfectly clear.
Yes.
We're talking about the Spring Creek Sports Complex.
Yes, the Spring Creek Sports Complex.
Yes.
I was just amazed on the amount of work that was done within the time frame that I went to go tour it, because I was doing the music for it. So I went to go take a look at it because I was doing the opening ceremonies and all that stuff. I quite honestly did not take enough speakers because I didn't realize this thing was going to be that huge, and it was. For a first-year tournament, it was a football tournament, but you can use those football fields for soccer. You can use the areas that they have for soccer, sure, or any other, maybe not baseball, but, you can
still practice on it. I mean, it's still an area to practice on, and they've improved that area a little bit, where it used to be just literally, pasture type area basically. And they've got some great things in the works out there at the Spring Creek Sports Complex. I'm excited for it. I know you're excited for it, and especially our friends at the Spring Creek Association. So I want to give a shout out to Jesse and Bailey and everybody that's out there. They do an amazing job. And now that things are starting to warm up, we're going to be out in Spring Creek a little bit more.
Heck yeah, we're excited for that. So that being said, I think we can move on. But that's kind of to answer your question. I know we got to talking a little bit more than we planned with soccer, but when I was growing up, it felt like, this is just my opinion, it felt like soccer was kind of neglected a little bit. Not so much by the high school or anything. It was just that was like, oh, it's just soccer. But now we have all these different clubs and all this travel ball and all this. It's great. That's good for the kids.
No, absolutely. Anytime you can offer them some sort of diversity in the different programs or different type of activities they can be involved in. I mean, I know my son, who obviously, we did a lot of baseball growing up, and basketball and football, wrestling, a little bit of basketball, a little bit. My son's a wrestler, and he plays basketball like a wrestler, if you know what I mean. But he had a brief moment where he was wanting to get in soccer, and of course I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't really want to go stand out there and watch you run around for an hour for a 1-0 score. But we actually did. He competed in a 3-on-3 soccer tournament up there at Mountain View, and I went into it, with a piss poor attitude, whatever, just because I don't know the sport. Not so much that I don't know the sport; it's just not my thing,
There was that with baseball guys. There's that stigma that you don't play soccer, type thing, but. So I can see, I've came to terms, like with me having a daughter.
Right.
My daughter, whatever she decides to get into, I will learn everything I possibly can for it, and I'll try to make her as successful as she possibly can. If she tells me I don't want to play softball, I want to play chess,
right?
Then chess it is.
Well, I went up there, like I said, with kind of a piss poor attitude. I was like, I'm just going to stand here, whatever. But being the competitor that I am, about a couple minutes into it, I'm running up and down the sidelines with the team, and I'm yelling things. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Kick the ball, basically. Get him, knock it. I don't know. I'm just yelling. But just getting involved with it and just seeing them out there, and enjoying and having a good time and things like that. So it's, as... being a young parent, whereas, you did things more probably the schedulely right way, waited till you're a little bit older. Obviously, I didn't. So, a lot of things that, that I look back on now, and especially my kids are like, oh, you didn't treat us like that, but I'm treating the grandkids like that. Well, yeah, I was still growing up too, so I was learning. So, now, and speaking of that, my son is over coaching, helping coach youth wrestling, which we're going to go right into with my 4-year-old grandson. He's actually out there jumping around on the mat, and like I said, it's just it's a different perspective after you've went through it or after you've grown up. I don't know which one is more
or both.
true. That's what I'm saying. I don't know which one is more true because I mean, as a for people who don't know me, I had 3 kids by the time I was 20. So I mean, I I had a lot of growing up to do in a short amount of time, and I didn't always do things the right way, but stuck with it, and I've got some great kids, and they're all doing a great job, and I've got some grandkids that I can see those mistakes that I made before. I think now because I'm like, okay, well, I probably shouldn't have done it that way. I'm going to go ahead and do it this way, and things like that. So I love youth sports, man. Youth sports get me real excited about watching them compete and succeed.
Well, with soccer is one of those ones. I had never. I want to say it was. When was the last World Cup?
A couple years ago.
Yeah, so I believe it was the last World Cup, or maybe the one right before that. But either way, the first time I ever watched the World Cup was really my first time ever watching, actually sitting down and watching soccer. We were at Dos Amigos, and they're huge soccer fans. The entire staff there, the people that were there, they were just going there to watch it. And there were so many rules that I had no clue what. I didn't know because I know you kick a ball and you want to stick it in the goal, but I didn't know these rules on how they do the cards and how they do
extra time always gets
extra time and all of that, because I thought it was kind of like football, like you have quarters and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I didn't know that you just go 90 minutes, I think it is.
Okay, I'm
maybe.
going with that. I'm going with that.
I think. If I'm wrong, that just goes to show that I don't really know that much about soccer. And then at the end, they announce, you got extra time, and I
some penalties.
I'm glad that I was at Dos Amigos because I was asking these guys these questions, like what's going on? What is this? So, but
they're like, what kind of Mexican are you? That's really what happened, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so I've just never. I don't have anything against soccer.
I say that. I mean, with Cliff on the show yesterday, we were talking about racism. Once again, that's just us poking fun because really, the World Cup in every other country except for the United States is like the big deal. It's like the Super Bowl everywhere else, right? Just all over the world, the World Cup is where it's at. And if you've never watched a World Cup, man, you talk about you think there's crazy fans at NFL stadiums? No, not even close. I mean, they've got stadiums, all around the world that are holding just as many as the Big House in Michigan, 100,000 fans, and these fans are rabid and they love their sport and it's great, and it's kind of comical that the United States, because football, right? I mean football, right? We American football and then football, what we call soccer. But yeah, growing up, loving football, actual American football, and things like that, never really got in soccer. And I'm from a small community in Southern Oregon, so not the most diverse place. I mean, we did have a little bit of diversity, but no, we didn't. And but my first World Cup experience was actually when the United States women won it in '99 when Brandy Chastain ripped out off her shirt, and I actually that went into overtime, and that was the first soccer match. Are they called matches?
You're asking the wrong dude.
Okay, so, and I watched it from end to end, and I'll never forget. I was at my now wife. I was at her parents' house, and we were still in high school, and I actually fell asleep during the match and woke up, took a nap, and woke up, and they were still playing, and then I watched the end of it, and it was cool because it was kind of put the United States youth, gave it a little bit of perspective, like, hey, this is cool too, right? Because and for what, like you said, for whatever reason at Elko High School when you were growing up, it just wasn't really a thing, and there was probably a lot of determining factors. But same thing, nationally. I mean, just soccer was never really that big of a deal, and then for the women to go do that, and that kind of put it on the map, and then I mean, I want to say it was the next year or right around then. That's when they actually came up with the United States Soccer League, and we got Messier, all those type of deals. So we have professional soccer in the United States, but yeah, that's just kind of my experience with that. So
we'll move on real quick. But that being said, I mean, it's a workout to do any sort of officiating, whether it's a referee for basketball, referee for football, umpiring. But man, I watch those referees; they're running just as much as those soccer players, man.
Yeah, man. I like. So there's another one of my hangups with soccer. And you talked about, with baseball guys, either you played soccer or baseball, right? And if you're a baseball guy, you're playing soccer, then who are you? Same type of thing in football season with cross country, right? So if you're not playing football, you're an athlete, you're running cross country. And, I always used to, when I was younger, run for fun. Like, who runs for fun, dude?
Yeah,
like,
right?
Are you kidding me? Like, no. I hate running. I'm running at the beginning of practice and end of practice, and I hate it both times, And it's just a different mindset, and a lot of that probably went into coaching the how we were coached in those other type of sports. I mean, you on a baseball field, you're like, man, I only got to run 360 feet at most at one time, right? Why are we running? That's my big thing when I went to college, and they put me in the bullpen. And no shit, dude. They entered our pitching staff into the Clackamas Community College local cross country meet. So we were its own team. And when the pitching coach told me, he's like, okay, next Saturday, we're entering in the cross country meet. And I was already pissed because we were running, I mean, at least 5 miles a day. But I didn't. As coming from a smaller community, being an infield, a utility player, you don't assert yourself as much as as I probably should have, because I didn't have to worry about making the team. I was gonna make the team, no big deal. I was gonna pitch, I was gonna play shortstop. So I didn't put in the work that I probably should have. And then when you go on to the next level, going to college, it's all even playing field, and the dudes that work harder are gonna, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter your natural ability, but if you're one of those guys that's on the fence, it's who works harder. And man, when they moved me from the middle infield and wanted me to go into the bullpen, and I mean, warm-ups was like a 2.5 mile run. And it was just like, what? I did not. If I wanted to do this, I would have went out for cross country a long time ago. But yeah, no, it's that's one of the things that I have a hard time with soccer. There's a lot of running involved, obviously, and the scores 1-0, 2-0.
That's my biggest thing is you're used to these high scoring games, whether it's baseball, whether it's other sports, but to get that. I guess you could look at it two different ways. Is if you do score, obviously you had to work your ass off for that score, because it took 30 minutes for anyone to even get close.
Yeah, for everything to align just right to be able to to even get a shot on goal. So
yeah, I know.
And that's the thing. Like, I mean, baseball, they're messing with the ball and messing with this and that and launch angles, and in the NFL they're all about protecting the offense and scoring more points to sell more tickets. Soccer's not worried about it because it's not worldwide. It's the most popular sport.
But
right?
Dude, you should have heard when I was watching the first time I watched a World Cup game. You should have heard Dos Amigos like erupt when somebody scored.
That's what I'm saying about the rabid fans.
Nuts, man. But the other thing I wanted to mention, talking about running, I was exactly like you. I hated running. I never, ever thought that I would run a half marathon, ever. And even when I did decide to, I was like, dude, I planned on running and stopping, walking, and then running.
Dude, I'm impressed that you did that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm turning 30. Let's, I want to do something that's gonna I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis quite yet, but it was just kind of
that's
one of
coming
those things. I give it to 50.
Give it
we'll
a couple more
50.
years. Mm-hmm.
We'll give it to 50. We'll see though. We'll see. But working out and stuff was never. I worked out. I used to work out with all my high school baseball players all the time. So it wasn't so much the working out. It was just running. You know what I mean? It's not that I was lazy. It's not anything. It's just running. I hated running. So even when I started training, I was running about 3 miles a day-ish, somewhere in there. But I think I told you that story, that my brother showed up with this guy who was like a professional runner, and I didn't want to look like an idiot. So that's the first time I've ever ran 13.2 miles, is it? I think it's 13.
Because it's 26.2 is a marathon, right?
Yeah, so 13.1, whatever. I've never ran without stopping that far, ever. Even though I had been training for like 2 months.
Did you run the whole time?
Yeah, I didn't stop. Because I didn't want to look like an idiot.
Hats off, bro. If I didn't have headphones on, I'd tip my cap, dude. There's no way I could even... I can't even fathom that. And when I was younger, I could run. And I could run for a long time being in shape, but I didn't want to.
But yeah, that's how I was too. I mean, I'm surprised I could run too. It's not like I was in bad shape. That's why I'm so proud of that thing, because I still remember we were coming up on the street. We were running basically on the coast in San Francisco, and you could see the lights to the stadium. It was still probably about maybe a mile away. But
this is in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I still had fuel. So I said, you know what? I can see the lights. So I'm like a horse. Have you ever been on a horse when they know that they're getting home? So I was riding a horse once, and a horse.
I've only rode a horse twice. Rode a horse twice.
If you,
they scare the shit out of me, dude. Full disclosure, like I'm not even messing around, dude. The horses intimidate the shit out of me. Go ahead though.
We had my uncle had a horse, and we were riding it. This was in Mexico, but I was riding it around. But they can tell when you're getting close to the house. And even if you don't tell them to, I mean, you can stop them. Right. But usually they know, like, hey, there's my house, man. I'm getting there. There's water. There's food over there.
Get this motherfucker off my back.
Yeah, that's really what it was like for me. I was like running, and then all of a sudden I look up, because when you get in that zone, you just kind of look down and say, let's go. So I was running, and I'm surprised. I still had I could have sprinted that entire last stretch probably. I would have been. I mean, I was hurting afterwards. Don't get me wrong.
I've never asked you this. Did you get to run across the Golden Gate Bridge on your way into San Francisco, or was it around San Francisco?
So you started at the stadium, at Giant Stadium, and you started outside. So you basically ran to the Golden Gate. And then right at the Golden Gate, you basically did a U-turn and then ran back to the stadium.
Oh, okay.
They did a couple of detours to make it the proper distance. But we got to finish on center field, which was like the best thing. Like I was walking around, but at that point in time, you can enjoy it the moment, but you're more worried about you kind of, the minute you relax, like it's really cool. But when you relax, if you get back up, that's when you feel the pain.
Well, yeah, that's when the lactic acid starts to kick in.
Yeah,
and you're starting to lose the adrenaline and the emotion, and your body's like, "What did you just do? You've never done this before. Why are we doing this?"
But I know this sounds really, I guess, weird, but you kind of do when you finally finish and you cross that line, especially having ran the entire thing. You almost have kind of like I don't know if I want to say a high or a buzz, but honestly, you're breathing hard. Don't get me wrong, sure. But you're just like it really was, and quite honestly, after doing that. The next week on Monday, I went and ran like 5 miles on Monday morning just because I wanted that feeling again.
Right.
It was really cool. So I know that's a little off topic, but yeah, I was never a runner ever. I know I could get back into it, But I've ran 3. Yeah, I've ran 3 half marathons. I'd love to get back in it.
So you did the one in Vegas.
I've done the one in Vegas. I've done it twice.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then I did that Ruby Mountain relay. That relay is the one that one sucks because you have to do it. Well, you take a break.
We've talked and you know when this show first started, Pedro was really gung ho about me doing it, and you know I would have done it, but you know then COVID hit and there's a lot of restrictions and whatnot, and you know when one of the most enlightening shows we had, you know, early on when we were still at the other outfit was, you know, when Ben came on, and you know, much like talking to these gals and guys and gals about real estate, that you don't realize, you know, a lot that goes into it. So, you know, the Ruby Mountain Relay, I still will be a part of. If it gets going back again, I'm not doing no 5-6 mile stretch, man. I'll be a hell of a tailgater and I'll do some fun stuff, but I just can't, man. Legit, my knees will not allow me to run that much.
I quite honestly think that this is, again, my opinion, that you would be better off if we were to do something like that with you. You'd be better off running like a 10K or a half marathon, just because to me I was hurting worse because you get 3 hours, 5 hours to start. Right. Yeah, so that gives you're sore, and then they're like, okay, you're up here. And
well, that's what I'm used to in softball though too. So like when we played 10, 12, 15 games in a weekend, you know, I'll be on for, you know, 2-3 straight games, off for 5 or 6 hours, and you know, have to pick it up again, and I understand that it's not the same thing,
but it's
conceptually speaking, like when you go into Sunday in a softball tournament, I'd rather play 6 straight games than play 4 games where I have 1 game on, 3 hours off, another game on, 2 hours off. I would rather just keep playing, keep it going, and keep it rolling than taking that time off. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Yeah, I really am, but I'm not pulling that stretch. And we got to, you know, we'll just pick our team well. That's, you know, we got to get Ben involved, and you know.
Well, I think we should have you do what's the distance of a 10K?
10 kilometers?
No, well, I know that, but the mileage. We're not
2.2 kilometers to a mile, man.
So do the math. I want to say, I'm gonna look it up right now. So anyways, we totally got off topic, but yeah, I really, if we do decide to ever do something like that, I think you should start with like a 10K or even a 5K. I mean, a 5K, I believe, is like 3-point-something miles. We're gonna look this up right now, as me and Danny don't know how to do conversions in our head.
We don't.
The metric system.
I'll show you that later, dude.
How long? Okay, talk, Danny. Is.
Huh.
I don't want to pick up my phone because I don't have a phone case.
And you don't want to break it for sure, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it seriously does. Like I'm getting like anxiety. It's okay. I know it's 10 meters, dude. 10 in miles. There we go. All right, let's see. 6 point. Oh, you could do a 10K. 6.2 miles. You got this.
No, 5K. Can I start with a 5K at least around town or something?
I'm telling you, you just put your head down. And you just go. Throw on your playlist and just go. That's it. And usually at least the ones that I've done, every half marathon, they always have a beer waiting for you at the end.
Okay, well, I mean, now you're talking my game. So if every mile that I cross, then I get a beer, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
All right.
So I never, like I said, I was really, really surprised with myself and impressed with myself because the only reason like I said, my plan was, okay, I'll run like 2 miles and then I'll walk for a little bit and then I'll go. But then my little brother shows up with this guy who's like intense. I mean, the way Ben is with running, that's how this guy was. And I didn't want to look like an idiot. I didn't want to look like a pussy.
I'm okay with that. I came to terms in
I
my
was like,
age,
nope,
dude.
I'm going. I'm not gonna be the I'm not gonna be the first one to slow down. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Plus, that one's a really cool one. I like the Vegas one is pretty cool, but the San Francisco one, man, that one is literally just you're running pretty much right on the coast. On I don't know if you remember Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh yeah.
When they're riding the bike.
Uh-huh.
That you run right there.
Nice.
So you're basically just right on the coast, and then you go to the Golden Gate, and then you turn around and come back, and then you finish on the at the baseball field. So it's a lot of fun. I'd love to do it again because I love the Bay Area.
Right. No, I like the Bay Area too. We need to go over there and hang out. So all right, well we'll get back on topic here. We got Saturdays, but that's what happens when we start talking sports, man. That's what the show's all about. So just moving on, we started talking about it a little bit with some youth wrestling has kicked off this last weekend. Elko Youth Wrestling Club, my former club that I was the director of for 5 years, hosted the first youth wrestling tournament since 2020. So it was really refreshing to get that off the ground. And myself, I have gotten back involved with our friends over at Infinite. Most people know it as Infinite Cheer and Tumble. They have a new wrestling program. And kind of started talking to them early on about the program and what they wanted to do, and told them I would help them out. And then as it got closer, we needed to find some coaches, and reached out to my old appointed coach at Elko Youth Wrestling, Mike Nakamura. And we decided to go give her another run. And our times at Elko Youth Wrestling Club was a lot of fun. There was, at times we had over 125 kids in the program. Had a lot of good coaches. Clinton, Todd Ratliff were around. There's just a lot of guys. I'm not even going to start naming names because I'm going to forget people. And I don't want to do that. But a lot of fun. And my son competed really well in youth wrestling, and it goes back to my dad used to run a youth wrestling program up in Oregon for many, many years. And my dad had a polio, and he was born in 1947. My dad had polio, so literally like one leg was shorter than the other, and his ankles were, silver dollars bigger around, and he had to actually learn how to walk a couple times. Had the Forrest Gump knee braces, like the knee braces you see in Forrest Gump. My dad actually had that shit. He was walking one day and fell down and couldn't get back up, and he had polio, so anyways, he was involved in wrestling. It was really the only sport that he could do, but he was all upper body, and got as high as runner-up, in the state of Oregon. And his passion was wrestling. All my brothers wrestled, and I wrestled from a young age, and got out of it. My dad actually told me that I was a two-time defending district champion, and my last year I was 36-1. And my dad pulled me aside before my freshman year and told me, well, you got to make a choice. It's basketball or wrestling. And I'm like, I could do both. And it's like, no, you can't. You got to do one or the other. And my dad actually told me that at the time our high school wrestling program it had great history, but it was in shambles. They were still trying to find a coach, and it just wasn't a great program. And our basketball program, our high school coach had been coaching the five of us since we were younger, so he was like, dude, you need to play basketball. So I moved on to play basketball, but wrestling always stuck with me. And it teaches some of the most amazing life lessons and things like that, and accountability, and we talk about sports does that in general, but wrestling really brings it out in you. There's no excuses in wrestling. There really isn't. You're gonna put in the work, and it's you get beat or you don't. You can't blame it on your coach. You can't blame it on your teammates. You can't blame it on your quarterback. It's all you. So with that being said, it was nice to get back out there. Infinite Wrestling Club, excuse me. Smaller club. It's we've only got about 16 wrestlers, but we've also got six to eight coaches. So there's a lot of personalized wrestling, and we had 3 to 4 days to get these kids ready for a wrestling tournament, and they went out and did well. Some of them wrestled before, some of them haven't, and jumped back out there. And Elko did a great job. It was kind of surreal going back in the gym. I've been out of it for about 6 years, and things have changed a lot in 6 years. We were just starting the track wrestling thing at your bigger tournaments like your Salt Lake Slam and the WOW and things like that. But your local tournaments, it was still note cards and brackets taped to the bleachers and things like that. But now it's all digital. It's all, you've got TVs around the mats, and you're tracking the kids on your phone, and went out there and had a good time. The kids had a good showing. We took 8 kids to the tournament, and 6 of them placed in the top 2. We had 4 first place finishers and 2 second place finishers. But yeah, it was just cool to be out there seeing Ruby Mountain Wrestling, of course, like we've talked about, or I've talked about extensively. They've got over 150 kids in the program, which is just absurd. That just tells you the quality of the program. Elko's down to around 50 wrestlers. Some of the other smaller towns don't really have too much of a show. I didn't see any Wells kids there, and I didn't see any Carlin kids there. As far as the program is concerned, Battle Mountain was there, which Battle Mountain is historically a good wrestling school. There was even a club called Ravage Wrestling, which came out of Utah to come over and compete. Winnemucca, and then of course Elko Wrestling Club. So it was a lot of fun to go out there and have and get out there and yell at the kids, and picked it right back up. Took my 4-year-old grandson out there and let him kind of just tumble around on the mats and see if he looked interested, and now we've got him at practice and seeing how that takes. So youth wrestling is in full swing. We've got the Kiwanis coming up this weekend, which is a big tournament. The high school wrestling tournament's Friday, Saturday out there in Spring Creek. And then Sunday we'll finish up with the youth wrestling tournament. But a lot of those kids stick around or bring their little brothers or sisters to come down and wrestle. A lot of schools come down from Idaho and Utah. And like I said, it's a cream of the crop wrestling tournament. It's been going on for a while, I believe.
So I do have to point this out that Danny had said, a couple of months ago, probably, no, I'm not going to wrestle. I'm not going to coach wrestling. I don't have time for that. And then one day he comes in and, oh yeah, I'm gonna be coaching wrestling. And I'm like, oh, I knew it. Because I told him, I was like, yes, you are. Watch. It's not that he didn't want to wrestle. It's just that he has a bunch of other stuff going on.
Yeah, and there's a couple things went into that. And one is because, we are still trying to find a cloning machine for ourselves here at Battleborn Media, trying to be at all the different places. That was really one. And having Mike Nakamura, which he's a wrestling guy, 4-time state champion. 2015, he went and competed in Adult Worlds and took second in South Korea in the world. And as a 35-year-old, that's absolutely amazing. But he's a wrestling guy, and having him come in and help was big. But also Jessica and Uriel over there at Infinite, that was a big part of it too, because going in and seeing how they run their cheer organization, the things that they do, the things they believe in, as far as discipline and things like that. That was, Jessica really sold me on it. Don't get me wrong, Uriel's a badass. I love Uriel. He's cool. But, he'll tell you, Jessica's the driving force. And if you go down to Infinite, she's there all the time, down at Infinite Cheer and Tumble. They've got like 7 squads. They're doing, Athena's in, the little tumbling class. And they do a great job, and they do it for the right reasons, and it's a good club. So that was why I got back into it. And I don't know, maybe the 4th of July kind of got my juices turning a little bit from the Freedom Festival out in Spring Creek.
Right. I was wondering where you were going with that. We won't tell the story. It is a fun story, though. You can message us and we'll tell you the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not like we got anything to hide.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely see that. Well, yeah, we do want to thank Infinite Cheer and Tumble and everything that they're doing. Huge supporters of Talkin' Sports, Pedro and Danny, and Battleborn Media Networks. Unless you have anything else wrestling wise, Danny, I need to grab a phone charger because I'm trying to look at my look stuff up on my phone and it's a dying. So if you want to jump in, unless you have anything,
Well, actually,
wrestling.
this will be a good. I kind of got something personal I'm going to talk about. So if you want to, I mean, if you need to go grab a phone charger, there's a whole pile of them right there on my deal. But yeah, no, I mean, talking about youth wrestling, just kind of want to give some love and give a shout out to a family that's near and dear to my heart and the wrestling community as a whole here in Elko. Longtime contributor to not only Elko High School wrestling, but Elko youth wrestling and just wrestling in general. Daryl Fry's having a little bit of health issues. He's over there in Salt Lake battling some health issues. So we just kind of wanted to do a little prayer chain, do a little, send some love out to the Fry family, because if anybody has ever had the honor of being around Daryl Fry, your life is better because of it. And he's an amazing man. Reminds me a lot of my dad. And he's gonna overcome this. But really wanted to give a shout out to him and his family. Jeremy, Malia, Cheyenne Lane, everybody. I'm not gonna. There's a big family, and we love you all. And honestly, talking about my experience in youth wrestling, I probably would not have been involved, at least when I did, as much as I was, if it wasn't for Daryl Fry. And he, like I said, he reminded me a lot of my dad. And coming from out of town and getting my son involved in the youth wrestling program, there's always the you're not from here kind of deal that goes around. But Daryl didn't care, and he was always willing to jump in and help coach my son. And my son ended up becoming good friends with his grandson Lane, and watched him and Cheyenne grow up, and even later on Shelby and Hunter. And of course Wade Fry, a state champion from Elko High School, 2-time state champion, I believe. From Elko High School, but yeah, just want to give a shout out, and I tell you what, if any man's gonna beat something, it's Daryl Fry, because recently he actually won a World Greco championship and 2 freestyle championships, and we're talking within the last year, and Daryl's he's got to be in his 70s, if not late 60s. But he went over there and won a couple world championships, and even one of those world championships. And I think Pedro, kind of jump in on this a little bit. In order to win one of his freestyle world championships, he had to drop an age group and bump a weight class. So he went down to wrestle younger dudes that were bigger than him and still won a world championship.
And how old did you say he was? When he did this?
It's in the last year. So, I mean, late 60s, early 70s.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So do you know how young the guys were?
They're all, in seniors, so they're all within. I don't know the age breakdown, to be honest with you, but still a world championship.
Either way, you're wrestling at 60.
Yeah, he's a tough man.
Yeah, and it kind of also goes to show about that. It's not necessarily strength, technique comes in a lot when it comes to
more so. Technique is huge in wrestling. You can beat a stronger dude if you got better technique.
Oh yeah,
and you usually use their strength against you. So, but yeah, that was just kind of my personal deal. Just wanted to give a shout out to Daryl Fry, the whole Fry family. Matter of fact, my son works for NDF under Jeremy Fry, which is his son. So a lot of love to you guys. I love all of you, and just wanted to take a minute to give you guys a shout out and let you know that there's a whole community out here thinking of Daryl.
All right, Danny. Let's move on. It looks like we've been talking quite a lot today, dude.
It's
Not
cool.
not saying it's a bad thing.
No,
I'm
we're
just saying that.
talking sports.
So okay, we football. There's a lot of stuff happening. We're getting close to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
And what's gonna take us there? And what's gonna happen?
I mean, this last week was nuts, man. And I mean, it really was. It was a great first ever Week 18 in the NFL. They're playing a 17 game season now, so we go into Week 18, and it was pretty wild weekend. We had. A lot of crazy scenarios that kind of played out. There was a lot of teams still vying for the playoff position. The Ravens and the Steelers were both hanging on by a thread, inching a little bit closer to Big Ben Roethlisberger's into his career. The Colts, all they had to do is go beat the worst team in the NFL. Niners and Saints both needed each other to lose. The Cardinals and Rams, they were playing for first in the NFC West. The Raiders and Chargers ultimately had one of the most interesting scenarios I can remember heading into the playoffs. So early on in the weekend, we saw the Colts completely forget how to show up. You can go ahead and walk by, Kobe. You're good, bud. No. All right, cool. Kobe just got here from wrestling practice, so. But no, it was the Colts absolutely forgot to show up. They just had to win one of their last two games of the season, and they were in the playoffs. And they just did not show up down in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville went and put the wood to them pretty much. The Colts only scored 11 points. So that was that opened the door for the Steelers, if you will, and the Steelers were able to get a win over the Ravens, knocking the Ravens out of the playoffs, and presumably given a spot to the Steelers for one more game for Big Ben. And then in the afternoon, that's where the games were at. There was no disappointment in those afternoon games. The Saints absolutely went out and dominated the Falcons, which was going on at the same time as the Niners. And, you know, when you're out there playing those games, you're not really watching the scoreboard, but you're definitely catching the score out of the corner of your eye because, you know, Niners, all they had to do is have the Saints lose, and they were in regardless of what happened to them. But with the Saints going up early and the Niners going down big early, they were down 17-0 early in that contest. So they, excuse me, Niners had to win that game. Had some classic NFC West slugfests. Like I said, the Niners were playing the Rams. Cardinals were playing the Seahawks. The Seahawks, nothing to really play for except for pride. And they went out there and played spoiler and took away any possibility for the Cardinals to win the NFC West divisional championship in quite of a shootout of a game, 38-34. The Rams-Niners game, it was ugly at first, I'll be honest with you. As a Niner fan, I was like, oh, man. And blaming it on the announcers because everybody's like, oh, the Niners are on a 5-0 winning streak against the Rams. And you're like, man, shut up. Like, don't be pointing that out. But it was they came back in the second half, turned it on, kind of shut down and got back, shut down the Rams offense and got back to playing 49er football, which is running the ball, and eventually got into overtime, and then were able to get the win, securing their postseason spot. And then the Rams, I mean, even though they lost the game because the Cardinals lost, they still walked out of their NFC West champions. So not a real big deal, but definitely some things to fix. You don't want to go into the playoffs losing a game and having that negative momentum. So Niners secured a playoff spot there. And then the nightcap, and this is where there's been a lot of discussion during the sports world regarding this, and this is where our discussion is going to take off. It seemed from the outside in, it seemed pretty simple. Raiders, Chargers, you win and you're in, and that's pretty simple. Just go out and handle your business, win the football game, and you get in. But if you looked a little bit deeper, if the Raiders and Chargers were to have tied, then that would have actually eliminated the Steelers from the playoffs and ended Big Ben's career, going from, hey, we made the playoffs to wait, no, we didn't make the playoffs. And both the Raiders and Chargers would have been in the playoffs at that time if they would have tied. So obviously it was mentioned early on in the broadcast. Then as the game progressed, it was like Chris Collinsworth was like, well, what if? And started talking about that and whatever. And then in the fourth quarter, the Raiders were kind of looking like they were going to cruise to it. And then Justin Herbert, University of Oregon alum, made some pretty amazing throws, some big-time throws, got them back into the game. And here we go. Now we're in overtime, and now that scenario becomes
a reality.
Becomes really close to reality, and they go into the overtime, and NFL overtime rules, you go out there and you get the ball first, you score a touchdown, you win. But if you kick a field goal or get a safety or whatever, the other team gets possession. And so the Chargers, the Raiders got the ball first, went down, kicked a field goal. Chargers got the ball back, went down and kicked a field goal. Now we're winding down to about the last 5 minutes of overtime. Raiders kind of moving the ball down the field rather slowly and methodically. And now the chatter keeps going, well, really if the coach was like, hey, coach, let's just sit on it. Let's just take a knee and we both get into the playoffs. Like it's cool, and the Steelers are completely hosed, which I thought was funny. It's no secret that I can't stand the Raiders, and I like watching the Raiders lose. But my brother's a Steelers fan, and I like the Steelers too. But I was almost cheering just for the simple fact that it would have put agony on my brother because he would have been so pissed that he had to cheer for the Raiders to actually win. But they went down, and with about 39 seconds left, it appeared that the Raiders and their interim coach were just going to say, you know what, not risking anything. We take a knee here. We both of us are good. We get into the playoffs, and young Chargers coach Brandon Staley took a timeout with 34 seconds left, and it was kind of a head scratcher, and everybody kind of wanted to know why and what the deal was. And the Raiders were out of field goal range at the time. Well, they weren't out of field goal range, but it would have been a 60-plus yard field goal. It would have been a hard field goal to make. And took the timeout. And then the Raiders, Josh Jacobs broke off a 10-yard run, and then the Raiders called a timeout, and they just had to kick a 40-some-yard field goal to win it. And they went out there and kicked the field goal and won it, knocked the Chargers out. Steelers are in, Raiders are in. But that brought up a lot of discussion to where a lot of people were like, well, why didn't you just take a knee? Why didn't you just sit on it? No big deal. What are you worried about? And that brings up the question about competitiveness. And would it have been good for the game for them to sit on it and say, yeah, no, we're good to crew back into the playoffs, if you will. And I was really glad to see the Raiders went for the win, because even if they went for the win and if they would have missed, they still would have been in the playoffs because they would have tied. But they did go for the win, and that's another thing that, a lot of the, I hate to say this, but conspiracy theorists, regarding the NFL say, oh, it's rigged. And first of all, you're talking about a bunch of alpha males, which are competitive as shit. They want to win. They want to beat you in whatever you do, in whatever kind of competition. They want to be better than you. So we're going to go out here and we're going to try to win the football game. But a lot of people said, they were playing for the tie. So, as a sports guy, I'm glad they went for the win. Whatever happened would have happened. But if they would have just knelt on it and said, we're good to back in the playoffs, I think that would have done the NFL a ton of injustice. What do you think?
Well, I think so too, and not only that, but also the teams. I mean, from kind of a PR standpoint, you're looking at you're giving everyone a reason to call you a bunch of pussies, pretty much.
Sure.
But so yeah, I agree. We had the conversation also with our buddy Pete Cavender. And we kind of asked the same question, and he said the same thing, that he was glad to see that they went out there and competed. They didn't just say, oh, we're good, we're solid, we got it. So I agree with what they did, and either way they would have been in it if they would have missed a field goal.
Sure, right.
So
There was I mean, the risk reward was, but they still they went for the jugular, And
Yeah.
it's a divisional game, and you play those guys twice a year, and you definitely want to win that game. So I was glad to see that ended up that way. So. The NFL, I think, did a good job and has been doing a good job over the last 5 or 6 years about making sure that there's some divisional games in that last weekend of the year, because a lot of the times that does end up having major playoff implications. And once again, the people that are out there that are saying it's rigged, it's not rigged. They're just using, hey, this is probably going to be. And if you put a bunch of divisional matchups, if everybody plays a divisional matchup in the final weekend of the year, chances are there's going to be some stuff on the line. So I think the NFL has done a great job as far as that's concerned. So we got the playoffs coming up. First and foremost, we got some games on Saturday. We got 2 games on Saturday. Speaking of the Las Vegas Raiders, they play the Bengals. Both squads, recent history, have a lot of history of choking in the playoffs and not really going anywhere. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The Raiders will have to travel to Cincinnati to play against the Bengals. So we'll see how that goes. Young squad out there in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow and gang, kind of tearing it up out there, and we're able to win a division title in a division that's been dominated by Pittsburgh and Baltimore over the recent years. And the other wild card matchup on Saturday is Patriots and Bills, and it's kind of a changing of the guard. Could be changing of the guard game.
we're gonna find out.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots were the cream of the crop out there in the AFC East for many, many years, and Bill Belichick has had the Bills' number, but the Bills got kind of a younger squad, and we know what the Patriots are, trying to get Mac Jones and Tom Brady's replacement up and going. So that should be an interesting game out there. In Buffalo, they have a pretty crazy Bills Mafia. We talked about crowds earlier with soccer and whatnot, but they got a pretty crazy fan base out there. So that'll be a good matchup to wind up Saturday. Then Sunday we have 3 games, starting off with the Eagles and Bucks. Eagles kind of squeaking into the playoffs a little bit, up and down team. Jalen Hurts, quarterback in that squad, doing some good things out there. And, of course, the defending champion Buccaneers, which had trouble last year against the Washington football team, another team out of the NFC East. Had a little trouble with them in the first round, but obviously went on to win a Super Bowl and put me in a pirate outfit for a Talkin sports show just after that. And then Niners Cowboys, man. I mean, I feel like I'm back in the 80s and 90s again. As much history as there's been with the Niners and Cowboys going toe-to-toe in the playoffs, a lot of NFC championship games. That's going to be fun to watch down there in Dallas. I guess it depends on which squad. Both of them have been kind of streaky. Dallas has got the number 1 offense. We were talking to Cooper about it. They got the number 1 offense in the league. But they go cold. And the Niners are still trying to figure it out. It seems like Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't decide to show up until like the last 5 or 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, which is super stressful. So Niners, Cowboys, and then Steelers, Chiefs. A lot of Chiefs fans have been putting it out there. This is Ben Roethlisberger's retirement party, which if I found anything over the years, man, when you start making quotes like that and you start picking on the bear or whatever, that's when you get your ass bit. And I don't know, man. They're all NFL athletes, dude. I don't know if I'd be trying to do that. And